Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Toyota and Lexus parts. Whether you are a Toyota and Lexus owner, you're a DIY mechanic, or even if you are a professional mechanic outside the dealership network, all this information will be relevant to you. And also we will discuss how do you find better prices and avoid the counterfeits online. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. If you are a returning subscriber, well, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's start with the part number information. So Toyota part numbers will have 5 digits or numbers with a dash in between. You can take that dash out and combine them, but I want you to separate them for a good reason. In most of your Toyota lineup, and we'll talk about the ones that are a little bit different in a little bit, your first 5 numbers are called PNC or part number code. This is a number that will be universal across almost all the lineup. For example, 04465 is front brake pads. This will be the same on a Camry, Avalon, Highlander, Sienna, etc., etc. And there are multiple of these PNCs, and if you know them, I'll show you ways where you can actually find your parts much faster and get through the hassle of searching through the whole page or writing a name and whatnot. Once you've ordered once, write that PNC, and then especially if you have multiple models, this will really be helpful if you're finding the same parts for different models. You just write that PNC real quick and it'll pop up. Then let's talk about the color-coded part numbers. So part numbers that are, for example, a body panel that is already painted from the factory, it will have a color designation. Typically, it'll have the same structure, the 5 digits or number, 5 digits or number. Then it'll have a letter and a number at the end. Usually A, B, C, whatever the case may be. That is a color designation, and that's how you know if this is a part that has a color or is not colored. For example, you go order a mirror. You wonder, is this mirror painted or is it gonna come just non-painted, primed, or whatever the case may be? You're gonna know from that designation. You're ordering an interior part. You're wondering, is there one color for all models or each model will have a different color? That's how you'll know that this is a color-coded part. And then there is the remanufactured parts, usually alternators, starters, rack and pinions, to name a few, and there are a lot others. Those part numbers will also have the 5 and 5, and then they'll have the 2 numbers 84 at the end. This is very important because I'll show you an example as we go into how to shop online where this could make a huge difference, and you should always put the same part number, put 84 next to it. You could save yourself a lot of money finding the remanufactured part. They do have a core charge, but that's the only hassle part. Now, sometimes Toyota will also have special service kits. Typically, these kits are not in the parts catalog. They will be included in a TSB where Toyota assembled the kit. This is for a specific repair. Typically, these kits will start with 0400 and a random number at the end, depends on the sequence of the kit. If you see that is a kit and you're gonna want to find the contents of that kit, not order the kit and then order multiple different gaskets or whatever parts, because this kit might have everything that you need for that specific repair. Then we go to the non-Toyotas, let's put it this way, starting with the BMW Supra, the BMW Toyota Supra or whatever you wanna call it, 2020 Supra and up. Now, it'll still have the 5 and 5, but in the second 5 numbers or digits, you're gonna have WAA or WA in most cases. That indicates this is a BMW part basically sold through the Toyota network. So that's how you're gonna identify them. The good thing is the first 5 digits or numbers, they're gonna be PNCs as well. So for example, same thing for front brake pads, gonna be 04465. For most cases, the PNCs for the Supra parts, they're gonna be the same. Then we move on to the not so same thing and life is good. The Subaru parts sold through Toyota for the Toyota 86 and the Toyota FRS. They will always start with the letters SU, Subaru, of course, and they will be all over the place. There's no PNC, you just have to look every single part number individually by name. And the last non-Toyota is Mazda. Believe it or not, Toyota sells parts for some Subarus, some BMWs, and Mazda as well, in the Yaris IA and the new Mazda 2/Yaris in the US, the hatchback. So those will be similar to the Supra, but they will have WB, not WA. The PNCs will still apply to most parts. So that's your, in case you're shopping for a non-Toyota parts at Toyota, now you know how to look them up and identify them. The other thing is, there are part numbers that will have the letters A, Z. This is typically in the second part of the part number, but these will be non-factory parts. These are the economy line. Toyota has a secondary line of parts just to compete with the aftermarket. They are basically drawn from suppliers. They're still OEM parts. They still have the same warranty and the same standards, but they are at a lesser cost because from a different supplier than that supplier that provided the part from the factory. I hope this is making sense. This is a little complicated. If you see the letters AZ, this is not a factory part, the same part that was installed at the factory. This is an approved supplier that supplied this part to Toyota to their standards, and it's sold as an original part, usually at a cheaper price. The other thing is YZZ. If you see that in the part number, this is also another form of the economy part, and usually this is more maintenance stuff. You know, your filters, oil filters, you're going to see those designations. These are not factory part, but for the most part, for almost all cases, when you see YZZ, this part might not be as available in its original factory form. For example, oil filters, you rarely, if ever, find an actual factory filter. They're all going to be YZZ filters. And then one last thing, hybrids. And this, by the way, applies to both, just as a reminder for Toyota and Lexus. Hybrid parts, specific hybrid parts, not parts for a hybrid car, but if you're talking about battery, filter for the battery, fan, or the components of the hybrid system, they'll typically, for the most part, start with the letter G. Just when you see that G at the beginning of the part number, that is a hybrid component or hybrid system component. Now, having said all that, let's talk about a few things. You cannot buy an original Toyota part from a supplier or any entity that didn't come directly from Toyota. That is the case. Nobody can get direct to the suppliers of Toyota, buy the parts boxed in a Toyota part, and get them for a different price than Toyota sets. It just does not happen. The order of business for parts is Toyota gets the parts, they box them, they check them, whatever the case may be, goes to their supply warehouse, and then from there, it's either going to go to a dealer. Sometimes they'll have separate deals. One example of that is some oil filters can be found in Walmart. That is the only exception that I know, but otherwise, it has to go to a dealership. Typically, the parts distribution network, at least in my area in Chicago, this could vary a little bit, depends, and it could be very different if you're outside the US, but they have a local warehouse. That warehouse sends parts to the dealer. There's warehouses scattered across the United States. If that warehouse does not have this part in stock, they will order it from another warehouse, and that's when the part will take a few days to get there because it has to get shipped from another city. Now, when you go to your local Toyota dealership, they'll be able to tell you it's either next day or maybe 2-3 days, or the part's completely on back order. It's not available in any of the warehouses across the United States or in the area where you're at. So that's how the parts ordering process happens. Let me fire up my laptop and we'll go shopping for some parts. Folks, there is MSRP, then there's wholesale price, and then there's employee price, and then there's actual cost to the dealership. Of course, the dealership is a place of business. They have to make money. However, you can actually shop around and find ways to get your price down from MSRP to the wholesale price. You'll rarely get it to employee price unless they're competing, dealers are competing, but you're gonna get it to wholesale price. And if you're talking about a lot of parts, you could save a lot of money here, and you can actually get these parts from the dealership at wholesale price. So let me fire up my laptop, let's go shopping, and I'll show you some tips and tricks on how you can find original parts that are not counterfeit through dealerships for a lot cheaper. Let's start our shopping experience. The first two websites you're going to need to start all your Toyota shopping with, parts.toyota.com and then parts.lexus.com, depends what you have. So over here we got our parts.toyota.com. Ideally, you want to start with a VIN number. That's the most accurate way to get all your correct parts. So let's put our VIN number here. This is one of the older cars. This is my 2012 Camry that got totaled. Let's put the VIN number for that. Let's hit enter. So now you got everything open. Let's go brake pad. We're going to scroll down. Here is the front brake pad. Let's open that. I want to show you the important thing. Do you see the part number right here? See how it's broken down in supersessions? So the 04465, that was the PNC for the brake pad. So if you search for that, it should populate. However, this is where things get interesting. The Toyota website kind of have a glitch where if you search for that PNC, it'll show you every single pad for every single model all together. Well, I'll show you a workaround around that. So you got this part number. Here's the interesting thing. Now this is populating a zip code approximate to my location. This is not actually my location. Neither are these three dealers really close to me. But let's look at one important thing here. MSRP, $104.50 for front brake pads for a 2012 Camry. Now that's a little too high. If you go to walk into the dealership counter, this is the price you're going to pay. But let's kind of look into the fine print. We're going to go to this Toyota. The price remains the same. And you notice now we switched to their website. Let's go back to the Toyota website. Let's go to Toyota. $104.50 MSRP. This dealership is also selling at MSRP. But if you go to this dealership in the middle, haha, $86.36. You already got your first savings. But it doesn't end there. You're going to copy this part number right here. Let's copy this part number. And let's open a new tab and let's look on Google. Let's search on Google. Let's go to shopping. Well, you see this $43.75. But watch this. First, it's eBay. Typically, you really need to be careful buying parts from eBay and Amazon. You got to verify who's selling these parts. Many dealerships will actually sell on eBay, some on Amazon, but when you're buying genuine parts, it's got to come from a dealership one way, shape, or form. So if you open this one, I mean, $43.75, that's great, but let's open it. This is where you got to be careful. Ceramic front brake pads. This is actually an economy pad, and they kind of put it in there so it looks like a genuine pad. They're not trying to lie to you, because if you scroll down this page to the actual part number, you notice it's the same PNC, but it says AZ219. We talked about the AZ parts. This is a economy line. So this is how that you could get sidetracked by this. So let's go back. Let's look at the parts here. I got 73, I got 69 from OEM Parts Source. I don't know, that's not a dealership. Other dealership, other dealership. So the consensus here is we're looking around to get down from that 86 to around 73. Looks like about from an actual dealership, 73. Then you're gonna go into your next website that I recommend. There are many websites that sell Toyota original parts. Toyota Parts Deal. There's Olathe Toyota. That's one that I actually like because they're very upfront and honest about them being a dealership. But before we do that, let's go back to our $86 because that does not include shipping. Now, some of these dealerships will give you the option to walk there in person and buy it, but some does not, like this one. So we're going to estimate the shipping here. Estimate cost of shipping, $15. Well, that puts you right very close back to MSRP. That doesn't help us. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and look parts.olathe.toyota.com. That's the first place you want to look. This is an actual Toyota dealership. They're not trying to hide the fact that they're where they're at. This is Olathe Toyota. It's a dealership somewhere in the United States. I don't even know where they're at. You're welcome to Google them, but they have a really good website. So let's enter our VIN number for my late 12 Camry here. It's gonna ask you, is this an LE, L, XLE, SE? It was an SE. So here we go. Now let's look for that PNC 04465. There you go. Immediately the pad's populated and $76.99. You see, it got you very close to that lower price. There is one more website that I have mixed feelings about. Toyota Parts Deal. Now, everywhere you go on this website, it doesn't really tell you that which dealership is this website attached to. It is attached to a dealership, but I just would feel much better if they flat out said which dealership they're attached to. It seems like some dealership in Southern California, but I would be more comfortable if they said which dealership, which means you can't use this price, and it's something that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Again, let's put my part number here, my VIN number, sorry. Let's write our PNC 04465. Here's that pad, and notice the price. $72.71. Now, we're talking now about $3-4 here. You can actually, and in most cases, and most people don't realize this, not from Toyota Parts Deal, but from Olathe Toyota, for example, or the other example we've shown, you could print that quote with shipping, go to your local dealership and tell them, or call them, tell them, I'm looking for this part number. I have a quote right here from another dealership online. Part price plus shipping equals this amount plus tax. Can you match this price? Some dealerships, if they're smart, they will say yes. Bring us the copy and we will match that price. Some dealerships that are not in the business of making money or just flat stubborn, they will say no, and fine. Then they don't want your business and you just go order it online, you get your price for cheaper. Now, some of these cases, you're gonna end up paying too much in shipping, especially if you're buying ginormous parts. But this is how you can actually use this. Go to the Olathe Part website, for example, and this just says parts.olathe-toyota.com. If you go to Olathe Toyota, it's a dealership. Their dealerships do not sell counterfeit parts, and if they do, they could get their franchise pulled. Toyota will not allow this. They are very strict over this. This is basically a dealership. They have all the parts on their shelf, or they are connected to a warehouse. They're just gonna, if they don't have the parts in stock, they're gonna order it, get it the next day, ship it to you, and that's that. Some of these dealerships will charge some high shipping rates. Some of them will be reasonable. Yeah, this is where you gotta shop around and find the best price and go for it. So now I'll give you another interesting example about the remanufactured part that we talked about. This is where you gotta pay attention when you're looking for these parts online. Let's go back to the mother base. Let's go back to the Toyota website. Let's start all over. I'm gonna select my vehicle. Let's add a vehicle, because I don't have a VIN number for this one. Cars and minivans. Let's go 2007 Sienna. LE, two-wheel drive, 3.5. So, we're gonna look up a rack and pinion. Very common to go bad on these, and you replace the seal and all that mess. For example, you're shopping around for one. Well, let's find it. It's right here. It's the MSRP is $702.50. A lot of money. But our price, we're still at that one dealership that is, you know, giving us a good discount locally. It's $552.17. Okay, well that's right off the bat, you saved $150. Great. But here is where things get interesting. You're gonna copy this part number, go up the top, put that part number and then add the numbers 84 for a reman one. Let's look at the difference here. $335. Now that does have a core charge, but still, we went from 702 to 500 and something, and then 335. Do you see that massive difference? Now you are in the price of aftermarket ones with a remanufactured original part, which I will tell you this from experience. The remanufactured original parts is basically the outside shell of the rack and pinion is reused, they paint it, but everything inside has been replaced. All the seals, the bushings, everything's been checked, everything's been redone to Toyota standards at a facility that Toyota uses to rebuild these things. Same thing for alternators, same thing for starters. Some older models, you got axles like that. This is how this is important. I'll give you one final example, and we're gonna go to the actual parts.lexus.com. Let's look at a specific car. Let's look at a 2015 ES350. Things that I want you to pay attention and spend some time with the parts catalog. Let's look at a 2015 ES350. Let's look for an axle. Just CV axle, you know, your axle ripped, grease is all out, and you're ready to go buy that $59.95 aftermarket CV axle. But before you do that, let's look at the parts here. Left front CV axle. It's a mere $889.21, and at this point you have lost all your faith in the dealership, called them a dealership, and moved on. But let's look into this a little further. Let's go to the 3 dealerships. Well, already the first dealership is $641, but that's still a lot of money. But here is where, if you really do a little bit of digging, you can actually find something interesting. If you go look into the parts catalog and write CV boot, and we find it right here. CV joint boot kit, left or right front. Well, this is a kit that has both CV boots, all the clamps, all original, for $93.17. Guess what's going to happen when you go install an aftermarket axle? You could get vibration. Some of these axles are actually universal across many models, usually don't fit right, and they're not balanced right, and you're going to take that $900 almost axle, throw it to the garbage just because of a little boot that ripped, and replace it with a junk one, and have vibrations, have all kinds of problems, because you did not want to fix parts. Folks, we are in an era of automotive repair where every single mechanic wants to be a parts replacer. Don't do that. Keep your car original. Keep that almost $900 axle. Repair it. Spend time in the parts catalog. See what's available for your car. Because people have a tendency of just ruling out the dealership and saying it's just a dealership, all their parts are overpriced. Well, actually, if you really shop around, they're not that overpriced for their quality. Because once you go into the aftermarket side and start looking at real quality parts, the price suddenly starts going up. And there is no part, at least for Toyota and Lexus, this might not be the case for other manufacturers, that will fit, that will work, and be of the quality of the original parts. Folks, Toyota and Lexus cars, they're very reliable, they're very well made. They do have their issues, of course, no car is perfect, but the original parts for Toyota are really worth it. But you don't have to pay MSRP for them. You can do these little shopping trips and find these better deals for the same part. And don't forget, pick up the phone, call your dealership. Don't call your this is something that I have to say because of the faces that are flashing in my mind right now of the parts people that I work with who are awesome. Don't call the dealership asking them for part numbers. See, that's the first red flag when you call a dealership and ask for part numbers. When you ask for part numbers, they know you're shopping online. So right now, they are doing what we just did for you for nothing. You're not going to buy the part, and they start not wanting to help you. But it's a very different story when you've done your homework, you know what price you can get it at. You call the dealership and tell them, I want this part number, I have this price with shipping. Because if you just say the price, they'll tell you, and the shipping? And they're within their right. You could pay the shipping, wait for this part to arrive in a week. Hopefully it's not all damaged and mangled up. Or you could just drive to your local dealership, pick up the part right now that is on the shelf for the same price. But this is what I want you to look at things with parts. Understand the parts. With this information that I shared in this video, you'll be able to build your own PNC list. You can go all over these websites, look at the parts information, look at the part numbers, make sure there's no reman part. If you're looking for a BMW Supra part, you're gonna know to identify it immediately. This is how you start building your knowledge of parts. The more you know as an owner, the more you know as a DIY mechanic, and of course professional mechanics, when they look at these random numbers of part numbers, the more informed you will be and the better decisions you're going to be able to make. I actually encourage all Toyota owners, whether you're a mechanic, DIY or not, look at the parts catalogs, because they will have explosive views of everything. Even if you're taking something apart, and this is, I will admit this, we do this at the dealership too. Sometimes the illustrations in the repair manual, they could be not the greatest, especially when you're dealing with little washers and the order of things. The parts catalog actually gives you a really nice explosive view of things where you can see it, it looks very clear, and it helps you in your assembly, in your reassembly. If something is not clear, you're not sure if this part goes here or there, it's really helpful, folks. Do your due diligence, get the good prices. Many dealerships are very competitive these days. They're trying to gain the business because the aftermarket world, yes, that pad that we looked at, that in the end we could have got it probably around between $75 and $85 probably with shipping. You could go buy a pad for $20. Sure, but is it good? Who's going to warranty that pad if you have issues? And plus, you're trying to, let's say you're doing this job on your own. You're already saving money on labor. Why go put the cheapest part available? What kind of company stands behind that part? Because then when you get into the good brands, you're talking about a $10, $15 difference. If that really breaks the bank, I understand. And once you start getting to the good aftermarket brands, your price is going to get so close to original. This doesn't make sense. Just think about it. We're talking about Toyota and Lexus here. And folks, to close this video and give you the final advice, always shop around. Look for, even if you're looking for aftermarket and you think the original are too high, how do you know this aftermarket is not too high? You got to find the original price, not the MSRP, the best original price you can get it at, then shop for aftermarket so you know, is it worth it to go aftermarket for a part? Some parts, I don't blame you, some of these radiators can get really expensive here for original. Then you go buy the Denso one, which is made by the same company, for half the price. I don't blame you in that case, but when you go buy random brands, be careful, because sometimes you end up paying almost the same as the original. Might as well get the original. And folks, all the websites that we've used today, I'm not affiliated with any of them. I'm just doing this to help you. These are many examples, and there are many other dealerships other than the ones we mentioned here that have their own websites that do this. They're trying to stay competitive, so shop around. But the final warning is, when you go on eBay and Amazon, be very careful with the original parts unless it clearly states this is a dealership. And any website you go to, you gotta find which dealership is this originating from, because they've gotta be a dealership. There is no other connection to inside. Some parts websites will have like a little network of dealerships that sell parts to them at wholesale pricing, and they try to compete in this way. But ultimately, all Toyota parts come through Toyota, and all Lexus parts come through Lexus. Now, here is the other last thing, and this is exclusive for Lexus owners. This is a little trick. For some reason, and I'm not pointing fingers here, some Lexus parts, MSRP, are higher So when you go shopping for Lexus parts, take that same part number, go to parts.toyota.com, don't enter a car, just put that same part number and voila! The price sometimes will be cheaper. Sometimes it'll just tell you part not available. That means it's an exclusive Lexus part that is not shared with any Toyota model. But if you find it for cheaper, why not? It's the same part number. It's the same part. Toyota and Lexus have the same parts. But you're not going to find a control arm for an IS350 at a Toyota dealership because there's no other Toyota-based car that have that control arm. But brake pads for an ES350, there are many Toyota models that share the exact same pad. So shop, cross-shop all the time. Not Toyota or Lexus, but Lexus to Toyota. I hope this video is helpful and informative. I hope this helps you with your journey of finding the best parts for your car and, most importantly, avoiding the counterfeits. If you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. And until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.